Hello, this is Ken, and thank you for tuning in to the Model Building and Retirement channel. In this episode, we're going to show you how I built this 1932 Ford Tudor Sedan. Really nice build, came out really pretty. Let's get the intro done and I'll tell you all about it. Sponsored by Model Makers Workshop. Need parts for your next model project? Model Makers Workshop has you covered with the best aftermarket accessories around. And by Gallery, your one-stop shopping for all your airbrush needs. Okay, so we're back. So this is the Revell kit, 1932 Ford Tudor Sedan. Not what I expect from Revell. I usually expect a much better build quality out of their kits, but fit and finish for all the little intricate details like the headlights and all those little pieces. Nothing has really got a nice, good, firm place to mount. So it's very tricky gluing. I pinned where I can, but there in some cases it's so delicate that you couldn't even drill and pin. So, anyways, it's my first Kaleido paint job, which is a water-based acrylics with their water-based acrylic clear coat too. And I do have part of the paint job in this video, but I do have the complete video in my description. If you want to see that, I'll have a link in the description for that. But I'm pretty happy with the paint finish there. So let's get into the kit. Actually, first, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel. There's a button down below here. And if you click the little bell icon, that'll alert you to all my new videos. And subscribing, folks, is absolutely free. It just helps get me into the search engines a little bit better so I can get more viewers. Really appreciate the help. And always feel free to comment below and hit that like button. All right, let's get into the build. All right, so we're going to start out with the unboxing of the Revell 1932 Ford Tudor Sedan 2-in-1 kit build. I've already cut the seal. I always keep the cellophane on there because I keep the boxes, and it just reminds me of being in a hobby store where they're brand new. I'm only fooling myself, but I like to do that. All right, so first thing we start off with is a chrome tree, and looks like we got wheels, engine parts, and bumpers, and, you know, engine dress-up kit. All your typical chrome items. And then you got your glass. Real nice. It's got the separately applied headlight lenses in all your windows. Okay, and then you got your body. Looks pretty crisp. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of cleanup there with mold lines and that, but it looks pretty crisp. Nice looking body. And you get your tires. These are the typical cheapies here. They're not no brand specific. I'll probably be using something aftermarket on this. We'll see. Oh, wait a minute. We got other tires here. Let's see what I got. 2-in-1 kit. Okay, there's still no names, but they're a little thicker and wider. Okay, so you get 2 sets of tires. Okay, then we got some fender pieces here, it looks like, and engine block and transmission and interior seats. More interior pieces and a few engine pieces, under the hood pieces. Side panels for your interior, back seat, and floorboards. Okay, and then we get some more body parts here, including door pieces, it looks like, and also your outer fenders and running boards if you choose to build with that. It's a 2-in-1 kit, so one of the builds does not even have that. We got some more wheel pieces and suspension parts, it looks like, and also the side louvers for your hood if you choose to use those. And then we got our exhaust, steering wheel, engine accessories and whatnot here, suspension, rear end. You got your hood, your grill, front end grill. It looks like an optional engine. Then you got your main chassis. Okay, then you get, oh wow, nice. Okay, so you got 3 different chrome trees. The first one I showed you. And then you got this one, which looks like torque thrust wheels. And then you get yet another wheel option here. Oh, that's pretty exciting. So you got all kinds of different ways to build it. Then you got your trusty Revell instruction sheet here. So it has your part scheme here and your suggested colors, all your build instructions, decal placement, whatever. Then you get your decal sheet. So you have various license plates and stripes and side markers and whatnot. A couple gauge cluster pieces in it. Looks pretty good. I'm debating on how much of that I'll be using. So, okay, I'm going to get the body separated for paint and we'll be back. All right, so I separated all the body parts that I'm going to be painting. And it is a 2-to-1 kit. I'm kind of going in between the 2 kits. I am going to use the fenders and the top of the hood, but I'm going to leave the side panels of the engine compartment open so you can see that. And the firewall, instead of being body color, I'm going to paint chrome with either Revell chrome spray or Fusion Firm. And the chassis, a lot of that chassis and gas tank and all that shows too. So I'm going to shoot that all with the Kaleido, what's the word here? Magma Orange. It's a pearlized orange. Looks like a pretty color. All right, so I'm going to do all my normal body prep. You know, sanding out mold lines and re-etching or re-scrapping door panel lines and whatnot, and sanding, fixing everything, and then I'll be meeting you at the booth. Okay, so we're at the spray booth, and I actually shot 6 light coats of the orange Kaleido paint, and it was my first time using the Kaleido, so I do believe that with some practice that would probably be 3 to 4 coats, probably 4. This is just a quick example of the paint job. If you want to see the full paint job, check out my video. I'll have it in the description, and the thumbnail is above there. And it's called Can Kaleido Paint Compete with MCW's Enamels and 2K Clear? I think you'll find it quite interesting. So I'm shooting the color with the Mobius TG 0.5mm with fan cap, trigger pull, dual action airbrush. Shooting about 18 to 20 psi pressure. But after spraying the color, I do realize I probably could have used a 0.3mm. I think it went on a little bit muddled, and I think it would have had a finer spray if I used the 0.3, but in the end, it all came out quite well. And since Gallery is one of my sponsors, I'm able to pass on to you a 10% discount on your entire order using the code ModelBuildingKen, and I'll have a link in my description that'll take you directly to their website. So after I applied the final coat of color, I allowed it to cure overnight before I went into clear with the Kaleido varnish. So this is about an hour or 2 after spraying the color, just checking out the finish on the paint there. And it's supposed to be somewhat gloss. It hasn't been covered with the clear coat yet, but the body itself, it's glossy, probably semi-gloss in appearance. And then the smaller parts like the fenders or whatnot, they definitely had a much larger shine. I think because you don't have the overlapping paint to dry up as you make your passes. So anyways, we'll go to clear right after this. Okay, so we're back at the booth, and just like the color, I'm just showing you the 4th and final coat of the clear. And this is shooting Kaleido gloss varnish. That's what they call their clear. And I'm using the Mobius 0.3mm airbrush, premium series. Very nice dual action airbrush. And it really shot well. Like I said, I think I could have shot the color with this as well. And once again, the entire paint job is on the link in the description because I don't want to repeat the entire paint job here when it's on another video. Okay, and after the clear was shot, I allowed it to cure for about 24 hours, and then I taped it off for my flat black areas. And I'm using frog tape here. It's a low tack, crisp edge, good masking tape. I'm told it's very much like Tamiya tape, but in my opinion, much cheaper. And it comes like an 1.5 inch wide roll, but you know, if I need thin strips, I just put it on my mat and cut it with an X-Acto knife to whatever width I need. So anyways, I did not catch the paint job on this, but I used Tamiya Flat Black XF1. Okay, and this is after I sprayed the black and unmasked everything, and also the body has been sanded, buffed, and polished at this stage too. And once again, in that video that's attached for the complete paint job, I include the sanding, buff, and polish of the model too, so be sure to watch that if you want to see the details of it. All right, so I'm working on the flathead V8 for the 32 Ford Tudor, and looking at the heads of that flathead, they're just way too toy-like with that gloss chrome there. So I'm going to strip that down, and I'm going to be repainting them with something more appropriate, perhaps like a titanium silver, or even re-chroming on my own. But that just does not look very good. So what I've got is this dollar store, LA's Totally Awesome. And I just keep a little bit in a little Tupperware container here. And I've reused this several times. It works extremely well. So I'm just going to throw them in there and let that sit for several hours. All right, so working on the 32 two-door. Want to prepare some parts here for paint. I'm going to get the interior painted and the engine. So I'm going to assemble things as close as I can that are all going to get the same color. And then we'll do final assembly afterwards. So let me get these cut off the sprue and assembled, and we'll be right back. All right, so I'm at my brand new paste spray booth, having a lot of fun painting there. And note the new camera angle. I like the fact that I can shoot outside the booth like this. Anyways, all the remaining parts, I'm shooting gloss black Kaleido primer. And some of them will just remain in that color because it's just an excellent gloss black. You know, it's a primer, but it also is a nice finish coat. So I'm hitting everything with that, and then I'll color the items that need to be different colors after this cures out. I'll speed it up for your convenience here. All right, so I separated a few components that are going to be painted different colors. So I've got the exhaust, and this was all primed with Kaleido Gloss Black. And I'm going to go over the exhaust components with stainless, Kaleido Stainless. And on the head side here, the engine side, I've got the intake and the heads, head covers anyways, the heads for the flathead, and those were chrome plated. I stripped the chrome and painted that gloss black. So this is going to go aluminum on this side, and stainless on the other side here. I'm going to do that off camera, but I'll be back. Okay, so this is after the painting. So this is the aluminum color on the head there. Or I guess you call it the valve cover. And then stainless on the exhaust. And I'm probably going to do the mufflers in like a red, like the old Cherry Bomb or something. I haven't decided yet. They could be stainless as well. So you get your header pipe and your exhaust pipes painted that color. All came out pretty good. I'm going to let that cure up overnight, and then we'll start assembling the engine. All right, so I have most of the components painted up for the flathead Ford engine going in the 32 two-door here. But one of the things I wanted to do was a wired distributor. So in this kit, it gives you the old-fashioned, I'll pick it up and get it in my hand here, the old-fashioned Ford flathead distributor. So you got 4 spark plug going out that way and 4 the opposite way, and then a coil going to your coil there. I had a lot of difficulty trying to get any kind of boots or wires on there because they're just not all to scale, so they don't all fit. They just look out of scale because you put them side by side. There's not enough real estate there. And then I considered cutting these off and drilling in and pinning, but I kind of thought I was going to still have the same problem. It just, the wires and everything just don't come up to full scale there. So with that being said, I'm using an aftermarket wire distributor, more modern looking, from MAD, which is Morgan Automotive Detail, www.madmodeling.com. And this one was a tan distributor with blue wires. So I painted the distributor black with some Tamiya gloss. So this one looks a little bit more like scale. And I drilled out the back a little bit to fit the pin that goes on the front of the engine where this mounts, because this distributor goes on the very front of the engine and then to the spark plugs. So that's taken care of. Okay, so then, looking at the heads, this one I haven't done any modification other than these come on the chrome tree, and I stripped the chrome off and sprayed it with, I primed it and then I sprayed it with Kaleido aluminum. But your 4 spark plugs are here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the blue wires, you know, if you put a boot on them, and I tried the boots, like the 3D printed aftermarket boots I have, and they're just not the scale with this either. Just didn't working out. So what I decided to do is I happen to have some leftover rubber tubing from another model that I built. So this is just a long flexible rubber tubing here. And what I'm going to do is drill those out and glue this rubber tubing in there, maybe 1/8 inch long or so, to act as a boot. And then I'll put my blue wires into that. So I have to drill those out. Now, of course, they're sticking out here like spark plugs, so they're like male. So what I have to do is cut those off and drill in. And of course, it's difficult to get a hole drilled when you have, without a nice center punch tool. So I tried clipping them a little bit with my sprue cutters, but you can only get in there so far. So what I ended up doing is I have a spare airbrush needle tip cleaner here. So it has a nice little sharp tip on it. And I used a candle, heated the tip up, got real precise in there to melt that tip and then start twisting a little bit. And that gave me just enough of a center where I can go with some tiny precision drill bits. And I started with a very small bit and went bigger. Okay, so on the other head here, I had already started here. So I used small drill bits and just continuously drilled bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I'm able to glue this little tubing in, and I'll cut that off equally on each one of these. So that's just a bigger diameter hole there. So that'll be the boot. Just goes through the back. I'll glue it in the back there, cut that flush, and in the front, about 1/8 inch long. And that's going to allow me to just stick my blue distributor wires into that little boot there. So I'm kind of, in essence, making homemade boots. So I'm working on that first. I want to make sure all that is dry fit and works before I actually go to assemble. So I'm going to drill the rest of these out, cut everything to length, and get it all kind of prepared for wiring, and then we'll start the assemble process on camera. Okay, I want to show you a little bit better example of those spark plug boots going through the block there. So what I did is push that tubing through and just made it flush on the back, and then put a dot of super glue on the back of each one of those. So they're right now various lengths out the front there. And I determined that that second cylinder is about the right height. So what I'm going to do here is just take my snips here and cut these all even. Try to keep in camera range here. I'm zoomed in pretty close. Okay, so then what I'll do is I'll take my spark plug wires and I'll feed it through each one of those tubes. And this I'll do after it's glued onto the model. Okay, so I'll stick that wire through and pull it up, and the wires will all run across the top of the head here. So each spark plug wire will go upwards and then forward, like so. So that's the plan anyways. Okay, so we're going to start assembly here, but I thought that was better to do before it was assembled. But they're all nice and even now, so. All right, so I'm going to do the same to the other head cover, and we'll start assembling. Okay, so the engine is assembled, everything but the headers. I'll tell you what though, there's always a trick involved when you try to modify. So just doing the spark plug wires, as small as they may be, took up the real estate of where the alternator would go. The one that actually comes with the kit, I couldn't use at all, but this kit has a 2-in-1 engine, so the other one is a regular, more modern V8. So this is the alternator off of that. But even then, I had to hog out with my Dremel half the bottom to fit that, and it still barely fits correctly. You know, it looks pretty good though. But it's just amazing, you know, I mean, you wouldn't think just, hey, I'll put on some spark plug wires, everything's going to be so cool. And then you try to fit the next part and it's like, well, it won't fit. So right now I'm working on a little bit of panel liner. Let me try to zoom in down here. So I'm just using Tamiya black panel liner. And I'm just going to hit these heads. So it doesn't take much. Just dabbing it on part of the fin, and capillary action is taking it the rest of the way. But I think that looks so much better than the toy chrome that was on there. Okay, I'll finish dressing that up and then I'll get the headers installed. Last header. All right, so we get the headers on there. Engine is complete. Looks pretty good. Gonna let that all just set up for a while and take a break. Okay, so it's time to start putting some of the chassis together. And, you know, I haven't decided on my wheels. There's two versions of the kit wheels, and then I got aftermarket wheels. So I need to get this partially assembled to be able to actually dry fit stuff. So, you know, trying to just hold everything together and look at the options is a little bit difficult at this point. So before I start gluing here, I just want to glue out or drill out the back of my tailpipes a little bit. So I got a small drill bit here that fits in there a little bit, and all I want to do is hone that out a little bit inside. Make it look more like an exhaust pipe instead of solid. So you just get your little pin vise in there and you drill. Making sure you don't, you know, make sure you're straight so you don't go out the side. When I go off camera, what I'm doing is I'm just getting a real quick verification look inside my magnifier. So I apologize for skipping out on you there if I am. And you don't have to go real deep, just deep enough that it, you know, if you put a little dab of black down in there, it looks like it goes through the entire exhaust and not just ends right at the end there. Okay, that's deep enough. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to take a toothpick there and get a little dab of black in there, flat black. Okay, so to blacken the end of the tailpipe, I just took a toothpick, dipped it in some flat black tester's paint, tabbed it in there a little bit, and I had a little bit of excess, so I just used a Q-tip to clean that up a little bit. Okay, so we'll start assembling the chassis. And this got a little bit detailed there, kind of intricate pieces and big fat fingers here. So I'm just going to fast forward the clips for you, and we'll meet you back here at regular speed shortly. Okay, chassis pretty close to complete here. So we got the engine in, all the suspension parts. Kind of tedious. Tedious for fat fingers like me. Got that engine just the slightest bit cocked. It's one thing I hate about super glue. Good and bad about super glue is it'll hold quickly and permanently. But if you ain't positioned right, it's gonna just stay that way. And if you try to break the glue off, unless you're extremely lucky, you're gonna take plastic or paint with it typically. So anyways, it's looking pretty good. I'm gonna just wait till I get the body in there to see if I have to adjust that engine, but I don't think I'm gonna have to. Okay, so next up is the interior. So I used a little bit of dull coat on the carpet there because this was all sprayed gloss primer, and I'm going to leave it in that stage because that looks like nice shiny new leather. A little chrome piece for the dashboard, so I'm going to get some decals in there, detail out that dashboard, and start assembly, and we'll be back. Okay, so there's not a lot of detail on this interior other than mainly the dashboard. So I'm going to just start gluing here, and I will go fast forward, and then I will slow it down when I get to some of the details of the dashboard. Okay, we'll slow it down for a minute here. I had already put the decals on the instruments. There's just 3 little gauge clusters there. But what I'm doing now is I'm taking the UV resin and I'm going to pour that into a little bottle cap here. And I will apply that to the gauges with a toothpick. And I'll just continue doing that until it builds up like a little dome. And because of surface tension, that's kind of easy to do. So you're able to just little by little keep adding it, and it'll give you a little bit of a dome there. So I'm going to apply that to all 3 of those. And while I was at it, the only other decal in the kit was the rear license plate. And it comes on a little bit of a frame, so I decided to put a little UV resin on top of that as well to make it look like it has a clear plastic lens cover over the plate. So I also dotted that in with the toothpick. And then we're going to put that under the UV light. And this UV resin and light kit came from Amazon, and I'll have a link in my description for that. But it has an option for 30, 60, or 150 second exposure time. So I ran that through 2 150 second exposures because I had it on a little bit thick here. Of course, I'm going to speed it up so you're not watching for the whole 150 seconds. So we'll be right back as soon as that cycle's done, which will be a second for you. So next up, I broke out my little bottle of Fusion Firm Chrome, and I used a little tiny detail paintbrush there, and I started detailing out the dashboard and the turn signal and automatic shifter stocks. So I just lightly touched that, and then I used a toothpick for the buttons. And then I also dry wiped a little bit of Fusion Firm on the two little vents on either side of the dashboard, and also off camera did a little bit of Tamiya panel liner in there to darken up the vents a little bit. I also had one last decal to put on there, and that was on the center of the steering wheel, and I followed up using a little bit of the UV resin on that center cap as well. And here's a closer look at the dashboard and the steering wheel. And here we get one good look at the interior fully assembled before we put it into the body. It came out looking pretty good. Okay, so next up was installing the glass. I just used a toothpick with a little bit of blue tack on there to seat it into place, and then once I did that, I just used a detail brush with a little bit of Mod Podge and a cap there, and just started like going around the perimeter and kind of putting little dots and just pressing it into the edge of the glass, making sure I didn't push it so far that it would bleed through. Then I went on to the headliner, and I just used black craft paint and a wider brush here to get the majority of the roof painted, and then I finished up with a little detail brush. All right, so we got the interior married up to the body. That was a tight squeeze getting that in there. You got to spread that quite a bit, and then you got to be careful not to be knocking your glass out and all that stuff, which of course I did. So it took a couple attempts. But anyways, okay, so we got the interior up in there, and I just put it, after I put the interior in, I just put a couple dots of glue just to make sure it stays put and doesn't shift around. So, okay, so let's see what's next on the instructions here. All right, so next up is the firewall, which I had painted with the Revell chrome spray, and it's been sitting for a week. And even using gloves, it's marred up there a little bit. I'm going to wait until a little further on because I will be running a hood on this. So maybe I can touch it up with Fusion Firm. We'll just have to see how important that's going to be. So next up is the radiator going in. And I don't know, they give you a choice, A and B. They look identical. I'm using the one that's the right number. And that one fit in so good, it's just a press fit. And then I got a little electric fan here that we're going to glue in. All right, so every build I do one stupid thing for sure, maybe two, and this model's no exception. I didn't read the instruction sequence very well, and when it came time to put the body onto the chassis, I put the body on first and super glued it, and then tried to put the fenders and the running boards on. Well, guess what, folks? That goes on first, the body goes on second. So my typical undoing of super glue, having to break the joints, knocked out the windshield, knocked out some chrome parts underneath, got a little dab of glue on a window. I don't even know how that happened because it wasn't there beforehand. Well, I did manage to get it back together. You know, it's looking all right, but damn, it would have been so much better if I would have just did that sequence. And I don't know what I was thinking. Obviously, they should go on first. So, all right, so next up, we're going to fit the hood, and I'm just going to glue that in place. But I'm going to do that off camera so I can see through my glass. And then I got a couple hoses to install. And then we're into the final trinkets, you know, door handles and headlights and taillights and all those little details. So I will be back for the reveal shortly. Okay, so that was quick. Here we are at the reveal. I think she looks pretty good. We got her in the garage here under some nice lights, and we'll do a little slideshow here. The biggest problems I really had with this was, first of all, I made that stupid mistake of putting the body on before the fenders, so I had to break it apart, and then of course you always knock other things off there. But the little intricate little lights like we're looking at here, and the license plate and the headlights out front, all that was very delicate to do. There's just not a real good placement. In the back I was able to pin those to the frame, but in the front I drilled out the buckets a little bit and then just glue bombed it to that little yellow rack. Very nervous about something like this taken to a show because very, very fragile. So anyways, let's enjoy the slideshow, and I got as many shots as I can from different angles here for you. Okay, so that concludes this episode of Model Building and Retirement. So this was the 32 Ford Tudor. Hope you enjoyed it. Also, I do have a clothing line. You know, click on my store. It's right on under my main page. There's a store icon, and I've got hats, and I've got shirts, and I've got bags, and I got hoodies, and I got, you know, all kinds of stuff. So check it out, please, please. And if there's anything I can answer for you guys, you know, leave comments below, and I'll get you answers as soon as I can. And thanks for watching.